Sarah Jenkins stood at the kitchen counter of her modest two-bedroom apartment in Raleigh, North Carolina, sorting through a stack of bills under the harsh fluorescent light. Outside, rain pattered against the windows, matching her quiet determination. As she calculated figures in her worn notebook, at 53, her hands showed the subtle signs of years spent working double shifts at Memorial Hospital, where she'd been a dedicated nurse for over 20 years. Her phone chimed with a notification from her banking app. The special savings account she'd maintained for the past 7 years now displayed a balance of $87,500, money earmarked for one purpose only: a down payment on a house for her daughter Emma's future. With Emma's wedding to Tyler just 2 months away, Sarah allowed herself a rare moment of pride. All those extra weekend shifts, the vacations never taken, the small apartment she'd kept despite promotions, it had all been worth it to give Emma this gift. Sarah smiled as she picked up the framed photo on her refrigerator. Emma at her college graduation, beaming in her cap and gown, Sarah's arm wrapped proudly around her daughter's shoulders. That day had felt like validation for all the sacrifices since her husband David's death when Emma was just 11. Raising a child alone while working full-time had been exhausting, but Sarah had never complained. She deserves this start, Sarah whispered to herself as she tucked the banking information into a folder labeled Emma's house. She'd kept the gift a secret, imagining the look on Emma's face when she presented the check after the wedding. The thought warmed her more than the cup of tea steaming beside her. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Emma. Sarah smiled, expecting another question about wedding details. She had already contributed $15,000 toward the ceremony itself, nearly half of the budget, though Emma didn't know the exact amount. Sarah had insisted on handling payments directly to vendors to spare Emma the stress of financial management. She opened the message, the blue light illuminating her tired face. Mom, we've decided to keep the guest list small to avoid drama. Hope you understand. Sarah read the message 3 times, confusion clouding her features. Surely Emma wasn't saying what it seemed. She typed back quickly, Emma, what do you mean? I don't understand. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared before Emma's response arrived. Tyler's family thinks it's best to keep things simple. We're trying to avoid conflicts between families. It's easier this way. Sarah's hands trembled as she typed again. Are you saying I'm not invited to your wedding? The reply came faster this time. It's nothing personal. We're just trying to keep the peace. Tyler's mom is organizing most of it. Anyway, I'll send you pictures. Sarah set the phone down carefully, as if it might shatter like the pieces of her heart. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the windows with increasing urgency. She stood motionless in her kitchen, surrounded by bills she'd been paying to ensure she could afford her daughter's gift, unable to process that she'd been uninvited from the very event she'd sacrificed so much to help create. Nothing personal, she repeated to herself, the words hollow in her empty apartment. The following morning, Sarah moved through her shift at Memorial Hospital like a ghost. Her colleagues noticed her distraction as she mechanically checked vitals and administered medications in the oncology ward. Everything okay, Sarah? Asked Diane, her friend and fellow nurse of 15 years. You seem a million miles away. Sarah forced a smile. I'm fine, just tired. But during their lunch break in the hospital cafeteria, the facade crumbled. Between bites of a sandwich she couldn't taste, Sarah finally shared Emma's text. Diane's expression shifted from shock to outrage. She can't be serious. After everything you've done. Apparently, Tyler's mother doesn't want me there, Sarah explained, her voice unnaturally even. According to Emma, I'd create drama. What drama? You're the least dramatic person I know, Diane countered, setting down her fork with a clatter that made nearby staff turn their heads. Sarah shrugged, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. I've met Vivian Caldwell twice. She's particular about how things should be done. Old Charleston money. You know the type. I think she's always seen me as beneath them. And Emma's going along with this? Diane asked incredulously. Sarah stared at her untouched coffee. She's always wanted to belong in Tyler's world. The country club memberships, the summer homes. It's everything I couldn't give her. Diane reached across the table and squeezed Sarah's hand. That doesn't excuse cutting out the person who gave her everything you could. After her shift, Sarah drove to Riverside Park instead of heading home. The rain had cleared, leaving the air fresh and the grass glistening under the setting sun. She found a bench overlooking the water and sat alone, watching ducks glide across the surface while families strolled along the paths. Her phone buzzed with a notification from the wedding venue. Chapman Gardens was requesting the second installment payment of $5,800, due by the end of the week. Sarah had been handling all the vendor payments directly, something Emma had appreciated as one less thing to worry about. Staring at the notification, something shifted in Sarah's perspective. For years, she justified her daughter's increasingly entitled behavior as a reaction to growing up without a father, to the financial struggles they'd faced. Sarah had compensated by giving more, always more emotionally, financially, practically. And what had it gotten her? A dismissive text message and exclusion from the most important day of her daughter's life. The realization settled over her with surprising clarity. Her sacrifices weren't appreciated. They were expected, taken for granted, perhaps even exploited. With trembling fingers, Sarah navigated to her banking app and stared at the special savings account 87,500 for Emma's house down payment. Beside it, her own retirement account showed a paltry $42,300. At 53, she'd prioritized her daughter's future over her own security. Enough, she whispered to herself, the word feeling foreign yet liberating on her tongue. She opened her contacts and called James Thompson, her financial advisor. James, it's Sarah Jenkins. I need to make some changes to my accounts. By the time darkness fell over the park, Sarah had made her decision. The money she'd saved for Emma's house would be redirected to her own retirement fund. The remaining wedding payments would not be made. For the first time in 20 years, Sarah chose herself. 2 days later, Emma called. Sarah watched her daughter's name flash on the screen, her heart racing despite her resolve. She answered with a controlled hello. Mom? There's a problem with the venue. Emma's voice was tense, the words coming rapidly. They say they haven't received the second payment, and they're threatening to cancel. Didn't you handle that? Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself against the kitchen counter. I'm not going to be making any more payments for the wedding. Emma. A beat of silence, then. What? Why not? You promised you'd take care of it. That was before I was uninvited, Sarah replied, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Mom, I explained that already. It's not personal. Excluding your mother from your wedding is extremely personal, Emma, Sarah interrupted. And I've decided that if I'm not welcome at the wedding, neither is my money. Emma's tone instantly shifted from annoyed to placating. Mom, I think you're overreacting. Of course I want you there, but Tyler's mom thinks I don't care what Vivian thinks, Sarah said firmly. This is between you and me. You made a choice, and now I'm making mine. But the venue will cancel. Everything will fall apart. Emma's voice rose with panic. Then perhaps you should speak with Tyler's mother about covering the costs, Sarah suggested. Since she's organizing most of it anyway, we can't afford this without you. You know that. The words hung in the air, inadvertently revealing the truth. Sarah's role had been reduced to financial provider, not honored guest or beloved mother. I've paid $15,000 toward a wedding I'm not invited to attend, Sarah said quietly. That's more than generous. Mom, please. Emma's voice cracked. We can figure something out. Maybe you could come to just a ceremony. Or no, Emma, I won't be partially included in my only daughter's wedding as a compromise. I deserve better than that. And until recently, I thought you believed that too. After hanging up, Sarah sat in her silent apartment, expecting to feel guilt or regret. Instead, she experienced a surprising sense of peace. For decades, she'd absorbed Emma's dismissiveness, making excuses and accepting less than she deserved. The pattern had to end somewhere. Her phone buzzed repeatedly over the next few hours. Texts from Emma, then from Tyler, and finally from Vivian Caldwell herself, whose message dripped with condescension. I understand you're upset about the arrangements, but creating financial difficulties hardly seems appropriate. Perhaps we could discuss this maturely? Sarah deleted it without responding. The next morning, A courier delivered an envelope containing a formal invitation to Emma and Tyler's wedding. Sarah recognized it for what it was, not a genuine inclusion, but a desperate attempt to secure her financial support. She placed the invitation in her desk drawer without opening it and left for work, her back straighter than it had been in years. 1 week later, Sarah was organizing medication carts when her phone rang. It was James Thompson, her financial advisor. "Sarah, I wanted to let you know that the transfer is complete. The funds from the house savings account have been moved to your retirement portfolio as requested." "Thank you, James," Sarah replied, feeling a mixture of sadness and liberation. "How does my retirement outlook change with this addition?" "Significantly," he answered, enthusiasm evident in his voice. "With this boost and your continued contributions, you could potentially retire at 60 instead of 67. Earlier if you're willing to make some lifestyle adjustments." The possibility of early retirement, something Sarah had never considered realistic, suddenly materialized before her. Years of her life reclaimed, opportunities she'd thought forever closed now potentially within reach. "I'd like to schedule a comprehensive retirement planning session," she said decisively, "and perhaps discuss some investment options for travel." After ending the call, Sarah noticed 3 missed calls from Emma and a text. The caterer cancelled. They said payment was overdue. "Call me ASAP." Sarah silenced her phone and continued her work. The boundary she'd established felt like a life preserver in a sea that had been slowly drowning her. That evening, a sharp knock at her apartment door broke the peaceful silence. Sarah opened it to find Emma standing in the hallway, her face flushed with emotion. "You're ruining everything," Emma accused without preamble, pushing past Sarah into the apartment. "The wedding is falling apart because of you." Sarah closed the door calmly. "The wedding is falling apart because you excluded the person who was paying for half of it. I invited you. I sent the invitation after I stopped paying." Sarah pointed out. "That's not the same thing." Emma paced a small living room, her designer handbag, a gift from Tyler's parents, clutched tightly against her chest. "What am I supposed to do now? The venue cancelled. The caterer pulled out. Tyler's parents are furious. Perhaps this is an opportunity to reevaluate what's truly important about getting married," Sarah suggested, sitting on the couch. "It's not about the expensive venue or the gourmet menu." Emma stopped pacing, tears of frustration welling in her eyes. "You don't understand. This wedding means everything to me, to us. It's our start together." "No. The marriage is your start together," Sarah corrected gently. "The wedding is just one day. A day you're ruining out of spite." Sarah felt a flash of anger but contained it. "Is that what you think this is? Spite? What else would you call it?" "Self-respect," Sarah answered simply. "Something I should have modeled for you long ago." Emma collapsed into a chair, mascara tracking down her cheeks. "What am I going to tell Tyler? His mother is already saying this proves my family is unreliable." The comment stung, but Sarah refused to be baited. "Your family consists of one person who has supported you unconditionally for 24 years. If Vivian can't see my value beyond my checkbook, that's her failing, not mine." "So you're not going to help?" Emma asked, her voice small. "I've already helped, Emma. I've paid $15,000 toward a wedding I was told I couldn't attend. That money won't be returned to me even though the vendors are canceling." Sarah paused, choosing her next words carefully. "What I won't do is continue to finance an event where I'm unwelcome." Emma wiped her tears, mascara smudging across her cheek. "We could reschedule. Do something smaller. Would you help then?" Sarah studied her daughter, seeing not the confident young woman she'd become, but the little girl who'd learned that tears usually got her what she wanted. "No, Emma. That chapter of our relationship is closed. Whatever wedding you have, it needs to be one you and Tyler can afford on your own." After Emma left, Sarah poured herself a glass of wine and sat on her small balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Her phone dinged with a text from Diane. "Still on for breakfast tomorrow? Just us girls." Sarah smiled and confirmed their plans. For years, she declined social invitations to work extra shifts or accommodate Emma's schedule. Now, she was reclaiming those small pleasures, one brunch at a time. 3 weeks passed. Sarah heard through mutual acquaintances that Emma and Tyler had postponed their wedding indefinitely, citing venue issues. She felt a twinge of sadness but no regret. Some lessons came at a high price, but their value was proportionate to their cost. On a crisp Saturday morning, Sarah met with a real estate agent not to look at potential homes for Emma, but to explore condominiums for herself. "I've lived in the same apartment for 15 years, she explained to Monica, the friendly agent who'd been recommended by James Thompson. "It was affordable and practical while I was supporting my daughter, but now I'd like something that better reflects this new chapter." They visited 3 properties, but the second, a light-filled corner unit in a building with a rooftop garden and community spaces, captured Sarah's imagination immediately. "It's at the upper end of your budget," Monica cautioned as Sarah admired the granite countertops and hardwood floors. "I know," Sarah acknowledged, "but for the first time, I'm not saving for someone else's future. I'm investing in my own." After submitting an offer on the condominium, Sarah drove to Myrtle Beach for the weekend, a spontaneous trip she'd never have considered months earlier. She walked along the shore, collecting shells and watching families play in the surf. The ocean breeze carried away lingering doubts about her decisions. On Sunday evening, as she packed to return home, her phone rang. It was Tyler, Emma's fiancé. Sarah hesitated before answering. "Hello, Tyler, Mrs. Jenkins," he began formally, his Charleston accent more pronounced than she remembered. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all. Is everything okay?" A pause. Then, "No, ma'am, not really. Emma and we've been having some difficulties since the wedding was postponed." Sarah sat on the edge of the hotel bed, unsure how to respond. "I'm sorry to hear that. My parents believe we should reevaluate our relationship," he continued, his voice strained. "They feel that a solid marriage requires solid families behind it." The implication was clear. Sarah's refusal to finance the wedding had cast doubt on Emma's suitability as a daughter-in-law in the eyes of the status-conscious Caldwells. "And what do you believe, Tyler?" Sarah asked quietly. Another pause. "I love Emma, but this situation has revealed some complexities I hadn't anticipated." "Marriage is full of unanticipated complexities," Sarah observed. "How you navigate them defines your relationship." "Yes, ma'am," Tyler replied, sounding younger than his 26 years. "Emma suggested I call you. She thought, well, she hoped you might reconsider your position about the wedding." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling a familiar pull, the instinct to rescue, to sacrifice, to make things easier for her daughter. She breathed through it. "Tyler, my position isn't about the wedding anymore. It's about establishing healthy boundaries with my adult daughter. I love Emma deeply, but I can't continue enabling behavior that devalues our relationship." "I understand," he said after a moment, surprising her. "Actually, that's partly why I called. I wanted to apologize for my role in all this. I should have stood up to my mother about the guest list. It wasn't right." His candor was unexpected, and Sarah felt a glimmer of respect for the young man. "Thank you for saying that, Tyler. It means a lot." "Emma misses you," he added softly. "She won't admit it, but she does." "I miss her too," Sarah confessed. "But some distances need to be crossed by the person who created them." After the call ended, Sarah stood on the hotel balcony watching the ocean waves crash against the shore. The conversation with Tyler had unsettled her, reopening wounds she'd thought were healing. Yet beneath the pain lay a conviction that her path forward, however difficult, was the right one. Her phone chimed with a notification from Monica. Her offer on the condominium had been accepted. Sarah smiled, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. One door was closing, but another was opening. For the first time in decades, she was walking through it alone, not out of necessity, but by choice. Back in Raleigh, Sarah threw herself into preparations for moving to her new condominium. The process of sorting through 15 years of accumulated possessions proved both daunting and cathartic. Each item presented a decision: keep, donate, or discard. "You've got quite a system going," remarked Diane, who'd volunteered to help. On a Sunday afternoon, she gestured toward the meticulously labeled boxes filling Sarah's living room. "It feels good to decide what belongs in my future and what doesn't," Sarah replied. Carefully wrapping a crystal vase, a wedding gift from her own mother, in tissue paper, Diane picked up a framed photo of Emma in her high school graduation gown. Where does this go? Sarah paused, considering. Keep box. Whatever's happened between us, she's still my daughter. As they worked, Sarah's phone rang, an unfamiliar local number. She answered with mild curiosity. Is this Sarah Jenkins? Asked a woman's voice, refined and vaguely familiar. Yes, this is Sarah. This is Vivian Caldwell, Tyler's mother. Sarah's eyes met Diane's across the room. She put the phone on speaker. Hello, Vivian. What can I do for you? I was hoping we might meet for coffee, Vivian said, her tone carefully neutral. There are some matters I believe we should discuss in person. Sarah hesitated, remembering the condescending text message Vivian had sent weeks earlier. I'm not sure that would be productive, Vivian. Please, Vivian said, the single word clearly difficult for her to pronounce. It's important. Against her better judgment, Sarah agreed to meet the following afternoon at a cafe halfway between their homes. After hanging up, Diane raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about this? That woman is the reason you weren't invited to the wedding in the first place. No, Sarah corrected, taping a box closed with decisive movements. Emma is the reason. She made her choice. I'm just curious what Vivian wants after all this time. The next day, Sarah arrived at Rosewood Cafe 10 minutes early, selecting a table in the corner that offered both privacy and a clear view of the entrance. She ordered a cappuccino and waited, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. Vivian Caldwell arrived precisely on time, dressed in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly rent. Her silver-streaked blonde hair was styled in an elegant bob, pearl earrings complementing her composed appearance. She spotted Sarah immediately and approached with measured steps. Thank you for meeting me, Vivian said, extending her hand formally before sitting down. I admit I'm curious about what could be so important, Sarah replied, maintaining eye contact. Vivian ordered Earl Grey tea before folding her hands on the table. I've come to apologize. Of all the possible openings, this was the last Sarah expected. She remained silent, waiting for elaboration. My behavior regarding the wedding was inexcusable, Vivian continued, her practiced composure showing the first hints of genuine emotion. I allowed my prejudices and insecurities to influence decisions that weren't mine to make. Why tell me this now? Sarah asked. Vivian sighed, accepting her tea from the server with a polite nod. Because my son is miserable. Because your daughter is miserable. And because I've come to realize that my interference has caused harm I never intended. Sarah stirred her cappuccino, processing Vivian's words. You know Emma excluded me from the wedding at your suggestion. Yes, Vivian admitted, her gaze dropping momentarily. I suggested the guest list should be limited to avoid conflicting family dynamics. It was wrong of me. Conflicting family dynamics, Sarah repeated, unable to keep the edge from her voice. What exactly did that mean? Vivian looked uncomfortable for the first time. The truth? I was concerned about appearances. The Caldwells have hosted certain types of weddings for generations. I worried that your different background might clash with our traditions. My different background meaning I'm a working-class single mother without family connections or a country club membership, Sarah clarified bluntly. To her surprise, Vivian didn't deny it. Yes, it was elitist and shameful, and I regret it deeply. She paused, fingering the pearl necklace at her throat. What I didn't realize until recently was how much financial support you were providing for the wedding. That shouldn't matter, Sarah said firmly. I'm Emma's mother. I should have been included regardless of my financial contribution. You're absolutely right, Vivian agreed, the admission clearly costing her pride. But discovering the extent of your generosity forced me to confront my own hypocrisy. I was judging you while you were sacrificing to give your daughter what I could provide mine without a second thought. Sarah sat back, studying the woman across from her. Did Emma tell you about the money? No, Vivian replied. Tyler did. After you withdrew your support and everything fell apart, Emma was distraught. She blamed you entirely until Tyler pressed her for details about the financial arrangements. When she finally explained, He was appalled both by her acceptance of your exclusion and by her expectation that you would continue funding a wedding you couldn't attend. The revelation that Tyler had stood up for her sent an unexpected wave of warmth through Sarah. Perhaps there was more substance to the young man than she'd given him credit for. Tyler insisted we meet with Emma to discuss alternatives, Vivian continued. When she mentioned the amount you'd already contributed and what you'd planned to pay, I realized the ugly truth. I had encouraged the exclusion of the very person making the celebration possible. Sarah absorbed this, her anger softening slightly, but not disappearing. So your apology is because you discovered I was paying? No. Vivian shook her head firmly. My apology is because I recognized my behavior for what it was: prejudiced, unkind, and ultimately harmful to the two people I was supposedly protecting, my son and your daughter. She leaned forward. The money merely forced me to confront truths I'd been avoiding. Sarah took a sip of her cappuccino, considering. What do you want from me, Vivian? Nothing you don't wish to give, Vivian answered. I came to make amends, not to ask for forgiveness I haven't earned or money you've rightfully redirected. Whatever happens with Emma and Tyler's wedding, if there is one, should be their decision, not mine. She hesitated, then added, but I would like you to know that you would be more than welcome at any ceremony my son participates in. In fact, I would be honored by your presence. The sincerity in Vivian's voice was unmistakable. Sarah felt the hardened shell around her heart crack slightly, allowing a small measure of compassion to seep through. Thank you for telling me this, she said finally. It can't undo what happened, but I appreciate your honesty. As they parted outside the cafe, Vivian paused. Sarah, may I ask what you did with the wedding funds you withdrew? If that's not too personal. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile she'd directed at Vivian Caldwell. I bought myself a condominium. I move in next week. Vivian's surprised laugh held no malice, only genuine appreciation. Good for you. I think we underestimated each other in different ways. Driving home, Sarah felt lighter than she had in weeks. Vivian's apology didn't erase the pain Emma had caused, but it removed one layer of complexity from an already complicated situation. More importantly, it validated Sarah's difficult choice to stand up for herself. Sometimes, the most unexpected people became allies in the journey towards self-respect. 3 days before her scheduled move, Sarah received a text from Emma. Can we talk, please? The message was simple, without the accusations or emotional manipulation of their previous communications. Sarah considered it carefully before responding. Yes, my place, 7 p.m. tonight. The hours until evening crawled by as Sarah packed kitchen items, her mind rehearsing what she might say or not say to her daughter. By 6:30, she'd cleared enough boxes from the living room to create a conversation space and made a pot of the chamomile tea Emma had favored since childhood. The knock came at 6:58. Sarah opened the door to find Emma looking smaller somehow, her usual confident posture replaced by an uncertain stance. Her designer clothes and perfect makeup couldn't disguise the shadows under her eyes or the tension in her jaw. Hi, Mom, she said quietly. Come in, Sarah replied, stepping aside. I made tea. They settled on opposite ends of the couch, the physical distance mirroring the emotional gap between them. Sarah poured tea into mismatched mugs, most of her matching sets already packed and waited. Emma clutched her mug without drinking, her knuckles white. Your apartment looks different. I'm moving on Saturday, Sarah explained, to a condominium near Oakwood Park. You bought a condo? Emma's surprise was evident. When did you decide that? After I redirected the money I'd saved for your house down payment, Sarah answered honestly. It seemed time to invest in my own future. Emma flinched slightly but nodded. Tyler's mom told me she met with you. She did. She said she apologized. Yes. Emma set her untouched tea on the coffee table. She also told me how much you were contributing to the wedding. The full amount? I didn't realize. She trailed off, looking lost. You never asked, Sarah pointed out gently. I assumed it wasn't much, Emma admitted, shame coloring her cheeks. You always said not to worry about the money, that you'd handle it. I thought maybe it was a few $1,000s. Sarah felt a familiar pang, the consequence of her own habit of minimizing her sacrifices to spare Emma worry or guilt. I wanted to give you the wedding of your dreams. I just never imagined I wouldn't be there to see it. Tears welled in Emma's eyes. I messed up, Mom, so badly. Yes, Sarah agreed, neither accusatory nor comforting. You did. When Vivian suggested keeping the guest list small to avoid complications, I knew she meant you, Emma confessed, the words stumbling out. I knew it was wrong, but I was so desperate to fit into Tyler's world, to be accepted by his family and friends. She wiped at her tears. I convinced myself you'd understand, that you'd want me to have this perfect life even if it meant hurting you. Sarah listened, allowing Emma to articulate what they both already knew. Then when you stopped paying for everything, I was angry, not because you'd done something wrong, but because for the first time, you weren't putting me first. Emma's voice broke. It forced me to see how selfish I'd become, how much I'd taken for granted. And now? Sarah asked, maintaining her emotional distance despite the instinct to comfort her crying daughter. Emma straightened her shoulders. Tyler and I have been talking, really talking, about what matters and what doesn't, about what kind of marriage we want and what kind of people we want to be. She took a shaky breath. We've decided to cancel the big wedding altogether. I see, Sarah said neutrally, uncertain where this was leading. We're going to have a simple ceremony at the courthouse next month, with just our parents and a few close friends, Emma continued. No country club reception, no string quartet, no 5-course dinner. A small, genuine smile appeared through her tears. Just us, making promises we intend to keep, surrounded by people who truly care about us. If you'd be willing to be there. The invitation hung in the air between them, tentative and sincere. Sarah set down her mug, emotions conflicting within her. Part of her wanted to embrace Emma immediately, to say all was forgiven. Another part remained wary, protective of the boundaries she'd worked so hard to establish. I'd like that, she said finally. But Emma, there's something we need to address. First, Emma nodded, wiping away tears. I know. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything. I believe you are, Sarah acknowledged. But an apology is just the beginning. What happened between us revealed patterns in our relationship that need to change if we're going to move forward in a healthy way. What do you mean? Sarah chose her words carefully. For years, I've enabled your expectation that my needs would always come second to yours. That was my failure as much as yours. I wanted so badly to give you everything that I never taught you the value of reciprocity in relationships. Emma looked down at her hands. I never realized how one-sided things had become. Neither did I, until I was excluded from your wedding, Sarah admitted. It was a painful wake-up call, but perhaps a necessary one. How do we fix this? Emma asked, vulnerability evident in her voice. We start by acknowledging that we both contributed to the problem, Sarah said. Then we establish new patterns, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. It won't happen overnight, Emma. Trust takes time to rebuild. Emma nodded slowly. I want to try. I really do. So do I, Sarah said, allowing warmth into her voice for the first time. Because despite everything, you're my daughter and I love you. Emma moved across the couch and hesitantly took her mother's hand. Will you help me learn how to pack? Tyler and I found an apartment we can actually afford. It's small, but it's a start. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, recognizing the gesture for what it was, not just a request for practical assistance, but a symbolic step toward a more balanced relationship. I'd be happy to, she replied. I've become quite the expert lately. As they shared a tentative embrace, Sarah knew the road ahead would have its challenges. Trust once broken was never easily restored. But for the first time in months, she felt hope that their relationship might eventually transform into something stronger, healthier, and more mutual than before. Some lessons came at a steep price, but their value was immeasurable. Sarah's new condominium bathed in morning light as she arranged freshly cut flowers in a vase. They'd offered to help assemble furniture for Sarah's new home, a small gesture toward reciprocity in a relationship that had historically flowed in only one direction. This place is beautiful, Mom. Emma exclaimed as she entered, her eyes widening. At the open concept living area with its wall of windows overlooking a tree-lined courtyard. So much light. The southern exposure was what sold me, Sarah admitted, accepting a somewhat awkward hug from her daughter. That and the rooftop garden. Tyler followed with a toolbox in hand, his usual confidence tempered by evident uncertainty about his place in this delicate family reconstruction. Mrs. Jenkins, the neighborhood is really nice. Great location. Please call me Sarah, she reminded him with a gentle smile. And yes, I can walk to the farmer's market and that independent bookstore I've always loved. They worked together through the morning, assembling bookshelves and arranging furniture. The atmosphere remained slightly strained but not uncomfortable, like muscles being used in new ways, sore but strengthening. During a break for sandwiches on the balcony, Emma broached a subject they'd been dancing around. Mom, we'd still like you to come to the courthouse ceremony next month. Just to be clear, Sarah nodded, watching a pair of cardinals flutter among nearby trees. I appreciate that. I'm planning to be there, and Emma continued, exchanging a glance with Tyler. We want you to know that we've figured out our housing situation on our own. We've signed a lease on it, Emma continued, exchanging a glance with Tyler. We want you to know that we've figured out our housing situation on our own. We've signed a lease on an apartment in Riverside. It's not fancy, but it's in our budget and the location is good for both our commutes. Sarah felt a small wave of pride at her daughter's newfound maturity. That's wonderful. How did you manage the deposit and first month's rent? I sold my car, Tyler said, surprising Sarah. My parents weren't thrilled, but I explained that we needed to start our marriage on solid financial ground. I'm using public transportation now, Emma added, and I've picked up weekend shifts at the gallery. Between that and our regular salaries, we should be okay. It's tight, Tyler admitted, but it feels good to know we're doing this ourselves. Sarah nodded appreciatively. The sacrifice might seem small compared to what she'd done over the years, but it represented a significant shift in mindset for both of them. Actually, Emma said hesitantly, that's partly why we wanted to talk to you today. We've been thinking about the wedding. Sarah tensed slightly, old wounds still tender. What about it? We'd like to contribute to the courthouse ceremony costs, Emma explained. We know it's much smaller than what was planned before, but we don't expect you to pay for any of it. My parents offered, Tyler added quickly, but we declined. We're handling it ourselves. Sarah set down her sandwich, genuinely moved by this tangible evidence of change. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Later, as they assembled a bookcase in what Sarah had designated as her reading room, Emma paused, holding a shelf in place while Tyler secured it. Mom, can I ask you something? She said, her voice tentative. Of course. The money you saved for our house down payment. I know. It's yours and you're using it for your retirement, which you absolutely should, Emma clarified quickly. But I'm curious, how much was it? Sarah considered whether answering would be productive or potentially harmful to their healing relationship. Transparency went out. $87,500. Emma's hand slipped, nearly dropping the shelf. Tyler looked up sharply. 87, Emma repeated, visibly shocked. Mom, that would have been almost half the cost of a house in a decent neighborhood. That was the plan, Sarah confirmed. I'd been saving since you started college. A little from each paycheck, plus every bonus and tax refund. All those extra shifts, Emma whispered, pieces falling into place. The vacations you never took. The car you kept repairing instead of replacing, Sarah shrugged. I wanted to give you a good start. Tyler cleared his throat, clearly emotional. Mrs. Jenkins, Sarah, I had no idea. That kind of sacrifice. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Sarah assured him. It wasn't a sacrifice I resented making. I just needed to know it was valued. Emma set down the shelf and crossed the room to embrace her mother, tears flowing freely. I'm so sorry, Mom. I can't believe how blind I was. Sarah returned the embrace, her own eyes damp. We both made mistakes, Emma. The important thing is that we're learning from them. That evening, after Emma and Tyler had left, Sarah sat on her new balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Thank you. For today, for everything. I love you, Mom. Simple words, but they carried the weight of recognition and gratitude that had been missing for too long. Sarah typed back, I love you too. Always have. Always will. She set her phone aside and gazed at the darkening sky, feeling the first true peace she'd known in months. The money she'd saved for Emma's house was now securing her own future, but the painful journey had yielded something more valuable than financial security. A chance to rebuild her relationship with her daughter on healthier foundations. Some gifts couldn't be measured in dollars and cents. On a crisp October morning, Sarah stood before her bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of her new dress, a flattering shade of sage green she'd never have selected in her previous life of practical neutrals. The woman reflected back at her looked different in subtle ways. More rested, more confident, more present in her own skin. Today was Emma and Tyler's courthouse wedding. Small, simple, authentic, everything the cancelled extravaganza wasn't. Sarah's phone chimed with a message from Diane. You look gorgeous. The car service will be there in 20 minutes. Can't wait to see you shine today. Sarah smiled at her friend's enthusiasm. Diane had insisted on arranging transportation for Sarah to the courthouse. Every mother of the bride deserves to arrive in style. Despite Sarah's protests that it wasn't necessary, the past month had brought cautious but steady healing between mother and daughter. Weekly dinners, honest conversations, and small gestures of reciprocity had begun rebuilding what had been damaged. Emma had even asked Sarah's advice about her simple wedding outfit, valuing her mother's opinion in a way that felt new and meaningful. The doorbell rang precisely when expected. Sarah gathered her purse and a small gift box containing a pair of vintage pearl earrings that had belonged to her own mother, something old for Emma to wear today, if she wished. The courthouse steps were bathed in autumn sunshine as Sarah arrived. She spotted Emma immediately, standing with Tyler beneath a maple tree ablaze with red and gold leaves. Emma wore a simple knee-length cream dress with a small bouquet of sunflowers and daisies. Tyler looked handsome and slightly nervous in a navy suit. Near them stood Vivian and Richard Caldwell, more casually dressed than Sarah had ever seen them. Vivian caught Sarah's eye and offered a warm smile and nod of acknowledgement, their own tentative peace treaty holding steady. Emma turned and saw her mother approaching. Her face lit up with genuine joy as she hurried forward. Mom, you look beautiful. Sarah embraced her daughter, careful not to crush the flowers. So do you, sweetheart. Absolutely radiant. I'm so glad you're here, Emma whispered, emotion thick in her voice. I wouldn't be anywhere else, Sarah replied truthfully. The ceremony itself lasted barely 15 minutes. Simple vows exchanged in a wood-paneled room before a female judge with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. No string quartet, no professionally designed floral arrangements, no elaborate cake waiting to be cut. Just two young people promising to love and support each other, witnessed by those who truly cared about them. Sarah found herself unexpectedly moved as Emma and Tyler spoke their vows not with rehearsed perfection, but with authentic emotion that occasionally caused their voices to waver. This, she realized, was what mattered, not the trappings or the show, but the genuine commitment. Afterward, they gathered at a nearby restaurant for lunch, a party of 8, including the bride and groom, their parents, Diane, and Tyler's best friend from college. The small group settled around a table in a private alcove decorated with simple arrangements of fall flowers. I'd like to propose a toast, Richard Caldwell said, rising to his feet with champagne flute in hand. Sarah braced herself, uncertain what to expect from Tyler's reserved father. To Emma and Tyler, he began formally, then his voice softened. Your mother and I had grand plans for your wedding day, as parents often do. But what you've shown us by choosing this simpler path is that wisdom sometimes comes in recognizing what truly matters. He glanced around the table, his gaze lingering momentarily on Sarah. Family, honesty, living within your means, supporting each other through challenges. He raised his glass higher. These are the foundations of a successful marriage, not elaborate parties or impressive gifts. We're proud of the maturity you've both shown, and we wish you every happiness. To Emma and Tyler, the group echoed, glasses linking Dade. As the meal progressed, Sarah found herself seated beside Vivian. During a musical chairs moment when people rose to congratulate the couple. "Your daughter is lovely," Vivian said quietly. "She has your strength, I think, though perhaps she's only beginning to recognize it." Sarah considered this unexpected compliment. "Thank you. Your son has shown remarkable character these past months," Vivian nodded, a hint of maternal pride crossing her features. "They've both grown through this experience. Perhaps we all have." Their tentative conversation was interrupted when Emma approached, her cheeks flushed with happiness. "Mom, could I steal you for a minute? There's something I want to show you." Sarah excused herself and followed Emma to a quiet corner near the restaurant's entrance. "Tyler and I have a gift for you," Emma said, presenting a small envelope. "You didn't need to get me anything," Sarah protested. "This day is about you." "It's because of you that we're having this day at all," Emma replied. "Please, open it." Sarah carefully opened the envelope to find a gift certificate for a weekend spa retreat at a mountain resort a few hours' drive from Raleigh. "We know it's not anywhere near what you gave up for us," Emma explained, "but we wanted to do something to show our appreciation for everything you've done. Diane helped us choose. She said you've never taken a real vacation for yourself." Sarah blinked back tears, touched by the thoughtfulness. "It's perfect, Emma. Thank you. There's something else," Emma added, her expression growing serious. "Tyler and I have made a decision. We're going to start a savings account, just a small amount from each paycheck, but consistent. By the time we're ready to buy a house, we want to have saved the down payment ourselves." Sarah felt a surge of pride at her daughter's newfound financial responsibility. "That's wonderful, Emma. We're calling it the Sarah Jenkins Fund," Emma continued with a small smile, "to remind us of what real love and sacrifice look like." Sarah pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, unable to speak past the emotion tightening her throat. The gift certificate was lovely, but this evidence of lasting change in Emma's perspective was the true present. Later, as the small celebration wound down, Sarah found herself standing outside the restaurant beside Diane, watching Emma and Tyler thank their guests. "You did good," Diane said, bumping Sarah's shoulder affectionately, not just raising her, but teaching her this final, difficult lesson about respect and boundaries. "I wasn't sure it would take," Sarah admitted. "There were moments I thought our relationship might be permanently damaged." "Some lessons can only be taught through consequences," Diane observed. "You were brave enough to allow her to experience those consequences, even when it broke your heart to do it." Sarah nodded, watching as Emma laughed at something Tyler's friend said. "I just hope it sticks. Time will tell," Diane replied pragmatically. "But either way, you've changed too. That's just as important." Sarah couldn't argue with that assessment. The woman who had once defined herself primarily as Emma's mother, who had measured her worth by her daughter's happiness and success, had discovered a parallel identity. Sarah Jenkins, a person in her own right, with dreams, needs, and boundaries deserving of respect. As if reading her thoughts, Diane added, "So, when are you booking that spa weekend? I hear November is beautiful." "In the mountains." Sarah smiled, already imagining peaceful mornings with coffee on a balcony overlooking misty peaks, afternoons with no responsibilities beyond deciding which book to read next. "Soon," she promised. "Very soon." 18 months later, Sarah hummed quietly as she arranged fresh peonies in a crystal vase, the evening sunlight streaming through the windows of her condominium. In the background, soft jazz played from the speaker system she'd treated herself to last Christmas, a small luxury that brought her daily joy. Her phone buzzed with a notification, reminding her of dinner with Emma and Tyler at 7. She'd need to leave soon to meet them at their favorite Italian restaurant, where they'd hinted they had news to share. The past year and a half had brought gradual but significant healing to their relationship. The courthouse wedding had marked not an end but a beginning, the start of a more balanced, honest connection between mother and daughter. There had been stumbles along the way, old patterns occasionally reasserting themselves, but each time they'd managed to course correct through open communication. Sarah had discovered unexpected freedom in her new life. With her retirement fund secure and growing, she'd reduced her hours at the hospital to 4 days a week, using The extra time to pursue interests long set aside. A watercolor class at the community center. Volunteer work at a literacy program. Weekend trips to explore nearby towns and historical sites. She'd even begun dating occasionally, nothing serious yet, but enjoyable dinners and conversations with a history professor she'd met at a book club, a widowed architect who lived in her building, a physician from the hospital whose quiet humor she'd always appreciated. The doorbell chimed, interrupting her thoughts. Opening it, she found Emma standing there, looking slightly breathless. "Emma, I thought we were meeting at the restaurant." "Change of plans," Emma replied, her eyes bright with suppressed excitement. "Tyler's picking up takeout from Salvatore's. Can we eat here instead? There's something we want to show you." "Of course," Sarah agreed, curious about her daughter's barely contained energy. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," Emma assured her. "Tyler will be here in 20 minutes. They set the table together, falling into an easy rhythm of conversation about work, friends, the novel they were both reading for their newly formed mother-daughter book club. Emma had matured noticeably since her wedding day, growing into her role as Tyler's partner rather than his accessory, establishing herself professionally at the art gallery where she now managed client relationships. When Tyler arrived with bags of fragrant Italian food, he greeted Sarah with a warm hug before exchanging a meaningful glance with Emma. "Should we tell her now or after dinner?" he asked his wife. "I don't think I can wait through dinner," Emma admitted with a laugh. Sarah looked between them, intrigued. "Tell me what?" Emma reached into her purse and withdrew an envelope, which she handed to her mother with trembling fingers. "Open it," she urged. Sarah carefully opened the envelope to find what appeared to be a printout of a bank statement. Her eyes widened as she registered the name on the account, Sarah Jenkins Fund, and the balance, 68,427.83. "You've actually been saving," she whispered, deeply moved by this evidence of their commitment to financial responsibility. "Every month," Tyler confirmed proudly. "Plus my year-end bonus and the commission Emma earned from the Henderson Gallery showing. It's amazing," Sarah said sincerely. "But you didn't need to show me your account statements. I trust that you're being responsible." Emma and Tyler exchanged another look, barely suppressing smiles. "That's not the news," Emma explained. "That's just background. The news is what we're doing with the money." She handed Sarah another envelope, this one containing a brochure for a new housing development on the outskirts of Raleigh, modern townhomes with energy-efficient features and community green spaces. "We've been approved for a mortgage," Tyler explained. "With our savings as a down payment, we can afford the 3-bedroom unit. We sign the papers next week." "That's wonderful," Sarah exclaimed, genuinely happy for them. "Your own home. And you've done it entirely on your own." "Almost entirely," Emma corrected, her expression softening. "We had an excellent teacher who showed us the importance of saving and living within our means." Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, touched by the acknowledgement. "But there's one more thing," Emma continued, pulling out a final document from her purse and placing it before Sarah. "The most important part." Sarah looked down at what appeared to be a floor plan of the townhouse, marked with furniture placements and room designations. Her eyes caught on a notation beside one of the smaller bedrooms. "Sarah's room," she looked up questioningly. "We want you to have your own space in our home," Emma explained, her voice thick with emotion. "Not because we expect you to babysit future grandchildren or provide financial help, though both would be welcome if freely offered," Tyler interjected with a gentle smile. "But because we want you to be part of our daily lives," Emma finished. "To have a place that's yours whenever you want it. No invitation needed." Sarah stared at the floor plan, overcome by what this gesture represented. Not just physical space in their new home, but a place of honor in their family structure. A recognition of her importance that went beyond utility or obligation to genuine desire for her presence. "You don't have to answer now," Tyler added hastily. "We know you value your independence, and your condo is beautiful." Emma acknowledged. "We're not asking you to move in or give anything up, just to know that you always have a place with us." Sarah looked up at them, her vision blurring with tears. "I would be honored to have a room in your home," she said, softly, and to be part of your lives in this new way. As they shared the Italian feast, planning visits to the construction site and discussing furniture arrangements, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the devastating text message that had excluded her from Emma's original wedding to this moment of genuine inclusion, a full circle of loss, growth, and redemption, the money she'd once saved for Emma's house had instead secured her own future, allowing her the freedom to enjoy this chapter of her life without financial anxiety. But the greater gift had been the painful but necessary reset of their relationship, the establishment of boundaries that had ultimately made possible a deeper, healthier connection. "More wine, Mom?" Emma offered, interrupting her thoughts. "Yes, please," Sarah smiled, holding out her glass. "I think we have plenty to celebrate tonight." Later, after Tyler had left to meet a client for an evening appointment, Emma helped Sarah clear the dinner dishes. "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked suddenly, placing a plate in the dishwasher. "Canceling the house down payment, I mean. That money could have gone toward our home now." Sarah considered the question carefully. "No," she answered honestly. "That difficult decision changed our relationship for the better. It taught us both valuable lessons about respect and boundaries. The money matters less than what we gain through the process." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I was so angry at first. I felt betrayed, like you'd broken a promise. And I felt the same way when you excluded me from your wedding," Sarah pointed out gently. "I know," Emma acknowledged. "I couldn't see it then, but I do now. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, not just giving endlessly. A lesson worth the price we paid to learn it." Sarah agreed. As they finished cleaning up, Emma paused by the living room window, gazing out at the twilight settling over the city. "Remember when you used to tell me that story about the bird with the broken wing? How sometimes things have to break before they can heal properly." Sarah smiled at the memory. "I'd forgotten about that. I think about it a lot lately," Emma admitted. "Our relationship had a fracture that needed to be reset before it could heal stronger." She turned to face her mother. "Thank you for being brave enough to break what wasn't working, even when it hurt us both." Sarah crossed the room and embraced her daughter, feeling the solid reality of their reconnection. "And thank you for being willing to grow through the pain, not just around it." As Emma left that evening, promising to text with updates about the townhouse closing, Sarah returned to her balcony with a glass of wine. The city lights sparkled below, a constellation of human lives interconnected in ways both visible and invisible. 18 months ago, she'd stood on a different balcony, devastated by her daughter's rejection, uncertain if their relationship could survive the breach of trust. Tonight, she stood secure in the knowledge that sometimes the most painful ruptures created space for the most profound healing. The wedding that never happened had given way to something far more valuable, a genuine relationship built on mutual respect rather than codependence, on reciprocal love rather than obligation. Sarah raised her glass to the night sky, toasting the difficult path that had led to this peaceful moment. The money she'd saved for Emma's house had ultimately purchased something far more precious than property. It had bought them both the opportunity to redefine their connection as adults, to establish healthy boundaries, and to discover that true love sometimes meant saying enough before you could say forever. Some lessons came at a high price, but their value was beyond measure.